Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to show you the concept of inheritance in Python overview. So if you're not familiar with inheritance, in this video, I'm going to crystallize your concept. So in the last two previous videos, we have learned the object-oriented programming and what is object-oriented programming, classes and objects and tree strings and many more. In this video, we're going to be talking about inheritance. So if you don't know about inheritance, inheritance is a relationship between classes. It's like a class has the attributes of another class. Let me just give you an example. If a Tahsin is a class, it extends a human class or it inherit the human class, and the human attributes will get Tahsin. Let me just give you an example. Think like a human is a class containing 5 attributes: name, age, height, weight, and no, 4 attributes. And it will create the constructors, get a set as a known, and our Tahsin class will inherit that class. And by inheriting that class, Tahsin will get the attributes of that class and also can do the polymorphism as well. Now, if you're not familiar with polymorphism, I'm gonna discuss that later. But I'm gonna teach you inheritance in this video. So let's just open your PyCharm and start. So I'll create a new package for this. I just make a Python package inheritance. So right here, let me just create a new file. Since our program will be much bigger, so I'm gonna make it separated with 2 files. Just make it human. I will here make a class. Now this human class will contain an init, name as well as age. Let's just do a simple example. Now human have a function called sleep, which returns this. And let's just create another file here. You don't have to create another file, but since our program will be bigger, so it's good to actually define other files. So let's create a file. Now for inheritance, you will import. Let's just first of all import from human. Now, if you want to extend the other programming language, you'll find that you have used the extends keyword, but since Python doesn't have it, in class you put a parenthesis and put human in the brackets. By putting in parenthesis, you can do multiple inheritance, which I'm going to show you later. Alright, let's just make an init containing like a special now class Tahsin inherited human, it should have the sleep function. So for seeing, just pass it and nothing. Let me just create a new object. That's it. Right. Now if I say Tahsin dot Tahsin, here you go, Tahsin dot sleep function. Now this sleep function isn't at Tahsin, it's at human. Now Tahsin also had the sleep function because Tahsin inherited the human class. This is how the concept of inheritance works. Now let's do sleep.print. Let's see, this shows the following program. This is simply how it works. So this is the inheritance work. If you inherit another class, you'll get all the attributes as well as functions. Now you know what, let's just create some constructors. Let's create some constructors. Name. Here I'll use the self keyword, self.name equals name, self.age. So it will take a long time for me to actually complete this thing. So I'll be back when I create the getter setters. Now I've created the getter setters. Let's just make a twist string. Alright. In this twist string, I'll say return next parenthesis. Now of course the new class here. The name colon. So the name age colon. That age. Alright, now I've created the getter setters, twist string, as well as the constructor. Now, I probably wonder, this constructor constructs our class, but every time you do inheritance, there is no attributes and no values in our constructor, right? Because this name and age doesn't have any singular value. Like, I give you an example. If you create an object of this human class, you have to specify the values in the constructor. You have to specify the attributes value in the constructor. But when inheritance, you probably wonder, you don't do that. So how are you supposed to actually access the values? So we use the here in Tahsin, we will call the human class constructor to actually construct the human class right here. So how do you do that? So now use super keyword to do that. So I'm going to be showing you how to use the super keyword. Let me just go ahead. Second. Okay. So now in this human class, here I'll just put a constructor. In this constructor, since I have to actually specify the human class attributes as well, so that's going to have their own attribute as well as the human class's attributes as a parameter. But you probably wonder why, because these parameters are defined to actually construct the human class as well as the class in class. So the one who inherited the human class is going to have the human attributes as well as the constructor as well as his attribute in the constructor. So what makes it that his attributes in the constructor will be placed in his class, and the human class attributes parameter will also be placed in the human class. Let me just give you an example. Here I'll put his own message. Say message. Tahsin give a message as well as a name and age. Now this name and age attributes are from the human class. And here this message is for the Tahsin class. So self.message is equal to message. And this name and age is to define to construct the human class itself inside the Tahsin class. So since human class is not constructed because we haven't created an object, I will construct it in our constructor which is at Tahsin class. So every time I call Tahsin constructor, it will construct human class as well as Tahsin class. So here I'll use the super function. The super function is to define the super the one you've inherited. The one I've inherited is called human. So in super function, here it takes two parameters. First of all is Tahsin, your class name, and a self. And here if you type dot, there is all the functions you're gonna get. So here I'll choose the init function and pass the name as well as the age. Now after doing that, as it will construct our human class as well. As you can see, this will construct our human class. So what I've done here is simply construct our own class as well as a human class by the parameters. This is how the concept of inheritance works. Now as you can see here, I use the super function, which is a really good point to remember, because super function makes your upper class constructed without actually making an object in your child class. So this is simply how you can use a super function. Now let's just actually create the getter setters. There. Now I'm gonna just only do the message because we're gonna already by default we're gonna get the name and age. Now you'll know another point of why we use getter setters after a second. Here is a constructor. This is our value. Now finally create the string constructor as well as get a solution. Now if I try to use a, I'll say here it takes three parameters. The first parameter is the message, I'll say hello, and the second parameter is from the name, the is the age. Now if I try to change, as you can see this Tahsin or name as an attribute, if I print it, as you can see printed. And if I type Tahsin dot, as you can see there will be set name get a name. Here I'm using get name function. Now suppose in our human class these set names, and I will make this thing private. Let's just make this private. Wait a second. So if we make this private, the user is not going to access the data from creating an object. So let me just give an example. If I actually make two underscores below this, then the user will be unable to actually create an object and print it like this. Print it like this. Because this is an inefficient way and this is a bad way to do this thing. So you must create an object before doing these things. Alright. So this was the part of inheritance in Python. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do so, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. We'll talk about more about Python.